One of the biggest cliches in anime is the main character sitting by the window in the back corner of the classroom. You see this in basically every school anime ever made. But where did this come from? Who did it first? And why does this cliche even exist? You might think it's just because it looks dramatic when they stare out the window, but that doesn't explain why it's always in the back corner. After researching this extensively, I can tell you with confidence that the whole looking cool while staring out the window thing isn't even in the top 3 reasons this cliche exists. To understand why that's the case, we need to look at how this cliche evolved through anime history to find out who started it first. But before that, there's a crucial question that nobody seems to ask. Why is the window always on the right side? Some people might think the windows on the right side of anime classrooms are just for looks, but that's not true at all. This is actually based on how real Japanese schools are built. During the Meiji era, 1868 to 1912, Japan needed to rapidly modernize its education system and construct many new elementary schools. The Ministry of Education established strict construction standards, hallways on the north side where light was minimal, and windows on the southeast side to maximize natural light. Since most Japanese people are right-handed, windows were positioned so students' writing hands wouldn't cast shadows on their work. If you examine any footage of real Japanese schools, whether in documentaries, films, or anime, you'll notice the consistency. Windows are always on the same side, and outside the classroom, there are only windows and hallways, not additional classrooms like you'd find in typical Western school designs. By the way, I'll focus exclusively on anime, rather than manga or light novels, since many early works are lost, unscanned, or untranslated. Plus, as we'll see, this cliche likely originated in anime before spreading to other media like manga. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk business. My first instinct was to check 1963 Astro Boy by Osamu Tezuka, arguably the first true anime series. The show follows a robot with superpowers saving the world, so school scenes are rare. However, episode 57, or 37 in the American numbering, does feature a school sequence. Unfortunately, it takes place in a university-style auditorium rather than a traditional classroom, so the window seat doesn't even exist. I'll be honest, I thought this was going to be an open and shut case, and Astro Boy would be the first instance of the cliche in anime, but it wasn't, so I felt lost. However, for a reason I'll reveal later, I had a hunch that the seat by the window cliche had something to do with the 90s, so I jumped ahead to test it. So I went to the first anime I could think of from this decade, which was Slam Dunk from 1993. And what do you know? I might be onto something. In the very first episode, we find Hanamichi, the main character, sitting next to the window in the back corner, so the cliche definitely existed between 1963 and 1993 and is not a modern creation. And after hours looking through my anime list and finding nothing definitive in the 1970s, I focused on the 1980s. Now, this decade surely had something to do with the cliche, or at least that's what I thought. You see, this decade was crucial for anime development. The children who grew up watching the 1960s and 70s anime had become adults, many entering the animation industry themselves, like Hideaki Anno, the creator of Evangelion, and Katsuhiro Otomo, creator and director of Akira, represent this generation. More importantly, the 1980s saw the birth of anime culture with specialized magazines like New Type and Otakus. In other words, it's the first decade where it's very common to see references to other anime, and because of that is where we would start to see a lot of cliches, like catgirls or tsunderes in a lot of animes. Project A-ko from 1986 exemplifies this. It's essentially the first anime parody for otakus, featuring schools, cute girls, fan service, robots, space battles, and a very anime humor, for lack of a better word. If the window seat was already a cliche by 1986, it should appear here. But it doesn't. Characters sit well towards the front of the classroom, so the search continues on. I kept looking around this period to see if I got any luck, and by 1989, I found my first leads. Ranma 1/2 by Rumiko Takahashi, the creator of Inuyasha, shows characters progressively moving towards the back of classrooms, though not quite at the window. More significantly, Shuten Duji, based on a manga by Go Nagai, the creator of Mazinger Z and Devilman, places its protagonist next to the window, though not at the back. The breakthrough came in 1990 with the OVA slow step, the first instance I could find of a character sitting at the back corner by the window. Here's where it gets interesting. Slow step is based on a manga by Mitsuru Adachi, one of Japan's most respected manga creators. His series Touch ranks 17th among best-selling manga of all time, outselling heavy hitters like Fist of the North Star and My Hero Academia. It's the second best-selling sports manga ever, making Adachi technically the most successful shoujo author by sales numbers, excluding Osamu Tezuka. And now here comes a bit of speculation. I can't assure whether this is where this cliche was popularized, since I couldn't find any information about how successful Slow Step was or how much it sold. But what I can say is that it's based on a manga by Mitsuru Adachi, so it stands to reason to think that it might have something to do with popularizing the cliche. After all, it's an anime by a very recognized creator, and his studio, Umex, although not as well known, had a hand in many important anime of the era, like Otaku no Video by Gainax, the creators of Evangelion and Gurren Lagann, and franchises like Bubblegum Crisis, It's important to note that the target audience for all these anime wasn't the general public, but otaku anime fans, and most cliches tend to come from this type of anime for reasons I won't get into right now. I'll ask you to just trust me on this one. Slow Step had all the ingredients to launch a lasting cliche: respected creator, connected studio, and the right target audience. Almost immediately after Slow Step was releases, we could see this trope everywhere. Now, the million-dollar question: why does this cliche exist? You've probably heard explanations like, it looks more dramatic when a character stares out the window. It allows the protagonist to see what's happening outside the classroom, like in Death Note. And sitting at the back makes it more believable that characters can talk or get into all kinds of shenanigans during class without anyone noticing. And all of that is true. But here's the problem. All of that has always been true. It was true in the 60s when anime first started to exist. It was true in the 70s when the industry began to take shape. And it was still true in the 80s during the anime boom. So why is it only in the 90s that we start to see this cliche appear? Well, remember when we talked about Slam Dunk and how I had a hunch this cliche began in the 90s? Well, this is the reason why I had that hunch. I have 2 videos where I go more in depth about this topic. But long story short, in the 1980s, Japan was an economic superpower, rivaling the United States and inspiring the same awe China does today. Then 1990 hit like a sledgehammer. The stock market crashed 43% in a single year. Businesses collapsed, unemployment soared, and major corporations stopped hiring entirely for several years. This created a devastating problem. Japanese companies traditionally only hire recent university graduates. If you graduated during the crash, you missed your one opportunity for stable employment. By the time hiring resumed, you were no longer a recent graduate, forcing you into part-time or low-paying work, preventing you from having a house, a family, or moving out of your parents' house. This economic trauma gave birth to things like the hikikomori phenomenon. You know, those people who haven't left their house for years by their own choice that you see in a lot of anime like Konosuba as of 2025. Is estimated that 1.5 million Japanese people are a hikikomori. This context explains the sudden surge of existentialist and depressive anime/manga in the 1990s, like Evangelion, Berserk, or Lion. And this same context also reveals the true reason for the window seat cliché's popularity. While the window gazing symbolism resonated with Japan's economic depression, the primary reason was purely practical: cost and efficiency. Placing characters at the back by the window means fewer background characters to draw and less detailed classroom environments. This saves both time and money, crucial factors when budgets were tight. This isn't speculation. Yuichi Katu, author of Anju the Mischievous Gal and professor at Nagoya Zokai University, confirmed this on Twitter in 2022. Using panels from his own manga, he demonstrated how placing the main character at the back eliminates the need for extensive background detail, allowing focus on character interactions instead. And okay, if you don't believe me, I just want you to think about this. What a coincidence that something that saves time and money starts becoming popular right when time and money start to run out. Coincidence? I don't think so.